fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello and welcome to the Salt Strong live stream and podcast. My name is Rich Natoli. I am the regular host of this show, and I'm normally joined by the lovely and talented Ed Gobo, but unfortunately tonight, Ed has the sniffles. So he is probably watching and probably saying some choice things about me right now, but he's not feeling well. So he has the day off, and doesn't change the fact that this is going to be a great show. One of the things that we have going on right now is striped bass fishing. It's catch and release in a lot of areas. There are also areas where you cannot target them. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Know the regulations in the state that you're in. If you're not allowed to target them, don't take this information out there on the water. Just keep it in the bank for when you go to a place that you can. But if you're in an area like Maryland and you can target striped bass right now, this is an episode for you, because right now in the Chesapeake and off the coast of Maryland, there are some beautiful migration striped bass being pulled in right now on February 6, 2023. I mean, I'm looking at reports in the Salt Strong Insider Club of 50 plus inchers, some 50-pound fish still being caught off the coast. And our guest tonight, Captain Steve Griffin, is going to be going through his experiences in the Chesapeake, where he is a guide and is just putting his clients on these big trophy fish right now through the winter. So that's where we're going to go. Before we get to that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in on this one and give you a quick announcement for something that's going on. We have, for those that are in the area of Philadelphia, so we're talking New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Northern Maryland, we have coming up the Philadelphia Fishing Expo in Oaks, Pennsylvania, and I am going to be there, and I'm going to be in a Salt Strong booth. So come on out during it. It's February 17th through the 19th. Come on out, come by and see me, booth 429. And it would be nice to see some people put some faces to the names, especially some of you that like to really get on our backs when we're doing these live streams. There's a few of you I'd like to see and shake your hand up close and personal. So wanted to let you know that that's coming up very soon, right after the Eagles win the Super Bowl. That'll be the following weekend. So with that said, I'm going to welcome onto the stream right now Captain Steve Griffin. Captain, how you doing?
Good, sir. How you doing? Happy to be here.
I'm doing great. I'm glad that you're here. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself. But before I do that, I do want to let the Salt Strong Insider members know that you are actually within the community every week. If you guys haven't seen it, this is the same Captain Griffin who is posting his reports in the community. And they're awesome. And that's actually how we connected. I was listening to them. I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to talk to this guy. He would be great to have come on to the live stream and maybe get out fishing with next year. So we've already talked about booking a charter. So I'm going to be a client next year as well. So welcome to the stream. And why don't you take a moment and just tell people a little bit about yourself, about your guide service, and how they can find you online.
Sure. So I am Captain Steve Griffin. I run Griffin's Guide Service. We are in the middle Chesapeake Bay area. So pretty much between the bridges, if you know the Chesapeake Bay, mainly the Maryland portion of the Chesapeake Bay. And I do light tackle charters. So everything I do is artificial baits. We're throwing top waters. We're throwing Z-mans and swim baits. And we're going after... We're fortunate to have a very diverse fishery in the Chesapeake Bay. We get giant striped bass in the winter. Right now, that's what we're doing. We get an awesome migration, but we still have the schoolies and the residents here to fill in if the big stripers aren't eating. So wintertime fishing is phenomenal. And then spring, we start getting speckled trout. We start hitting the shallows when they start warming up a little bit better, and we get speckled trout. We get some nice rockfish or stripers. or striped bass, whatever you guys want to call them.
Yeah.
We start getting those in the shallows, and we really hit those hard with top water. Once our water temps turn about 50 degrees in the shallows, we hit that hard. That's tons of fun. And then we are extremely fortunate to have a huge bull redfish run in the summertime. So we get bull reds and we get cobia also up this way. And so that's kind of really what I look forward to every year and what people come from all over to do, because our bull redfish are bulls. We caught several hundred last year, and the smallest one was 41 inches.
That's crazy.
It's phenomenal. I mean, it really is a world-class fishery every day of the year. And I'm fortunate enough I grew up here. I'm right in the right spot to just have a good time. And I've learned a lot in my my time fishing, doing light tackle fishing in Chesapeake Bay. And now I'm happy to take clients out and show people what this place is all about.
Well, I can't wait to be one of your clients. I want to, and for full disclosure to everybody, I'm going to be booking a charter for the Bull Reds. So I'm going to be coming down for that, definitely. And Ed, who's the normal co-host, you haven't met Ed, but Ed is also planning to jump on that. There is a Captain Scotty Sevens, who I believe is also going. Yeah, he was actually in the intro to this. He's going to jump on board, I think, as well.
Awesome.
And then maybe we'll open up to some insiders, see if they want to fill out the rest of it. So hit me up in the insider community, guys, if you're interested, and we'll see if we can put something together here. But we're not talking redfish right now, no matter how much you and I want to.
We love the redfish.
We love them.
But I love, we call them rockfish. I love the stripers. And that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, so and I'll tell you what, and I'd like to get your sense on how the season has been so far, because my primary area, now I do fish the Chesapeake, I do fish the Delaware Bay, Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, and New York primarily. And I'll go outside those regions, but those are my primary areas. And I experienced this past season the most prolific striped bass migration I have ever witnessed in my entire nearly 50 years. And now part of it might be that I don't remember these better ones when I was little, but it was pure insanity off of the coast of New Jersey for way longer than it should have been, according to all conventional knowledge. There are guys that I know very well who live for striped bass fishing who were sore. They were in pain. They had bloody fingers. Their hands didn't work right. Yeah, their hands didn't work right. And they just kept going at it day after day, almost, not quite, but almost to the point where they gave up because the bite never ended. How's it been so far down there for the winter fishing in the Chesapeake?
Crazy. It has been so good. I think our big fish, we hooked a few really nice big fish early in December, actually. And that's usually when we start getting them. I usually around Christmas time start getting a nice wave of big migratory fish. But what I've noticed, and I'm looking at the forecast. I was just looking at the forecast for this week. We're going to be
Wednesday.
In the 60s. We're talking February.
Yeah.
We're usually breaking ice to go out and catch these fish. And we're going to be in the 60s. Our water temps haven't gotten below 40 degrees yet. Maybe 1 or 2 days we had a cold snap. We saw some 38s. But water temps above 40, it's just been phenomenal. The warm days have been, insane. The warm
it's
days
just sitting right in their zone. It's like the perfect temperatures. And we're supposed to be in the cold right now.
Yeah.
Now, relatively, it's cold, but we do the coaching with the Salt Strong community, and I talk every week, and I've been hammering Maryland and the Chesapeake. I'm like, oh my God, guys, this is where you find the winter bass. But the truth is, they're not acting like winter bass yet. They're still found in those areas, but they still haven't gotten lethargic. They're a little bit more lethargic than maybe December, but they're still active, relatively active fish out there right now in the water.
Yeah, we're still seeing them on the surface, chasing bait, swirling on the surface, and typically we see that in December and in February. They're lethargic, and you got to go get them and really wake them up.
Yep. Yeah, this is the real slow and low and hit them on the head. Which
Yeah,
still,
so that's actually I'd love to talk about sort of how we do that. Um, I learned
yeah,
it from one of the best captains in the area. This guy should write 1,000 books, but he just won't. But Captain LJ, he's the owner of GI Jigs, Lonnie Johnson, and he told me something a couple years ago, and I kind of looked at him and was like, "Yeah, you're crazy." But now I see it every day, and you got to think of these winter fish as seagulls sitting out in a football field, and they're just out there hanging out. They're not doing anything. And if somebody throws some potato chips out there, one seagull is going to go over and look at it. And once they realize that he's eating, he's excited, they're all going to swarm over and look at it. And that's really how we attack fishing in the Chesapeake Bay, or I do at least. It's crazy. We go out and we're checking ledges when it's not obvious, right? When we don't have birds working, when we don't have fish swirling on the surface, they're lethargic. We might not mark anything on our screens. And I fish a lot with electronics. I use my electronics a lot.
right.
We just go to the places where you would think underwater structure, ledges, um, off the shipping channels where there's good current, and you won't mark anything, but you'll catch a fish. I like to send down. I find this is what I call my fish finder. For those of you who can't see it, it's a Shimano Colt Sniper, and this lure, it's a metal jig. This lure will find any fish down there.
And how much does that weigh?
This is an 80 gram.
80 gram.
Yep.
Now, I asked you that for a reason because people were making fun of me for talking in grams in one of my videos last week. But when you're talking slow pitch, it's only grams.
That's all they talk about.
Yeah, they don't recognize ounces at all. So an 80 gram, and that's what you're using. And what depths are you using that in? Are you using that all the way out in the channels down to 100?
Oh yeah, that'll go deep. Sometimes if I typically don't fish 100 feet. I like to fish this time of year 35 to 70. 70
Yeah.
being really deep. Typically right there in the middle is my sweet spot. And I can get down easy with that 80 gram Colt Sniper. And like I said, it's the fish finder. If there's something down there, it's going to eat it. And you won't see anything on the screen. And then after catching one, maybe catching another, all of a sudden we're drifting. Or sometimes if the drift is too fast, we'll use the trolling motor to slow us down. All of a sudden you've got bacon on your screen and just stacks of fish. And it's time after time after time. LJ's LJ Seagull thing it works. It's insane. It's crazy.
It sounds similar to well, you're in the Chesapeake. I don't know how familiar you are with this, but blackfish or tautog, when you're out there fishing for them, you got to do what's called building the bite. So
Yep.
you don't spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes in a spot. You have to really work that spot, get the baits down there, and when somebody hooks up, then it's like, okay, you may go a half an hour, and all of a sudden somebody catches one, even if it's a little one, and then all of a sudden there's a second one, and then there's a third one, then there's a big one, then there's 10 more, and it just starts building until it dies, right? And then you pick up and move. It sounds like that's what you're saying. You get the one going, you get them out of their lethargy on the bottom and get them moving through the column, and it just kind of it sparks. It's like the mayhem. You throw the chips on the beach.
Exactly. And these might be the schoolie fish that are just hanging out there and that are thick, but it happens with every big fish we have, all the migratory fish we have. I do it with the bull reds, I do it with the stripers. When you have commotion and you've got all those fish fired up, guess what? The big fish are going to come in and see what's going on, and somebody is going to hook up. Or sometimes they come in a big wave and the whole boat gets gets taken by a big school of giant stripers.
And that's something. Try not to cross all those lines when you have 30, 40, 50 pounders.
It's the braided line limbo. That's what we do.
Yeah. It becomes a dance, and you get to see who's done it before, and then you get to see who just wants people to stay away from them. I've had that where it's like, you're casting over top of somebody, but you have to.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of file around, and sometimes you start on, the port side of the boat in the front, and you end up all the way in the back on the starboard side. And that's just the best way to do it.
Yeah. With these big stripers and the big redfish, they go wherever they want. We're using pretty light gear, just heavy enough that we don't wear the fish out too much, but light enough that it's just fun, and you can still throw light baits and really have a lot of good sensitivity. And yeah, they go wherever they want. If you might do 3 laps around the boat before you get them to the boat.
That's fun. When you have to lean over and dip that rod so it doesn't cut off on the bottom, that just tells you got a great fish on there.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And the big fish love to do that. They're smart.
They do. So you mentioned the gear. Let's talk about what you're using. So you're saying light tackle, and we had Sean Kimbrough on before. Not sure if you you probably are familiar with Sean. And he was talking his definition of light tackle. So I'd like to kind of level set with guests. What's your definition of, well, not light tackle, but what's the gear specifically that you're looking to use on your boat, or you're hoping that your clients bring on with them?
Yeah. So it's light tackle, but it's the right tackle. Like I said, it's just enough that you're not going to wear the fish out, because we do a lot of catch and release, but you still have very sensitive rods. We use, for our schoolie, give you an idea, for our schoolie stripers, we'll use sort of like a medium bass rod. I like it extra fast when we're doing vertical jigging. Mm-hmm. And I go to a more moderate tip when we're doing the shallows and casting, small diesel minnows or top waters, just so you get a little bit more give.
Right.
But that's for our schoolie size. For the red drum and the big stripers, I'll go up to about a medium heavy, 15 to 30 pounds. For the reds, I'll run 30-pound braid. Stripers, I like 15 because we are jigging deep for them. And if you get too heavy on your line, you're really going to start to get a lot of bow in it, and you lose that sensitivity. So 15 pounds is plenty to get those fish in and get them in quick, if you've got smooth drag. And I'm using 3,000 size Vanfords. Shimano Vanford is what I use. And I'll use that for all my striped bass. Sometimes for my redfish, I'll use the 5,000s. I've got rigs set up with 5,000s and 30-pound braid, and that's for just because they make such long runs.
Right.
We need that capacity.
Yeah, it's like stopping a train.
Yeah, but that's my light gear, and it's adequate. It's completely adequate. We whip these big fish pretty quick.
Yeah, I'll say from my perspective, I'm glad that you said that. And I always get a little nervous when people start saying their gear, because I always like to compare mine to others. So we're right in the same range. Now, I'm going to default to a medium heavy just because I use the same basically 4 rods for everything. Yeah. So striped bass all the way down to fluke. So I do have a medium heavy TFO Pro. And I do use the 15-pound braid, which I think is absolutely perfect for striped bass. And I use a 20-pound. I just use an Andy Mono leader, the cheap leader on there, and then whatever. The 3,000 size reel is what I use on everything. A lot of people use 2,500s. I find with the striped bass, typically on reel, it depends on which reel you get, but once you move up to the 3,000, often you get more drag on there, which is necessary to stop these big fish.
What's great, and especially with Shimano in the Vanford series that I use, is the 2500s have a felt. They have felt drag washers, which are smooth as silk. But when you're going and you have a chance of catching these big fish all the time, you could burn those up. So that's why I jump up to the 3000. Still smooth, still light as can be. It's got carbon drag washers. They hold up a lot longer. You don't burn them out. And you got the extra line capacity when you need it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I don't know, the 3000 reels are so light and so small right now. I
Yeah.
mean, what's the difference? You may as well get a little extra. That's just me. As long as it continues to balance properly on your rod, you're in good shape.
Even those
And
5000s are feather light,
yeah.
It's crazy.
There's one thing here. One question from Participation Trophy Fishing. There's others in there, but this one just popped up. I want to show it. Get your opinion. 30-pound red versus 30-pound striper. What fights better? I know my answer. Let's hear yours.
If you tied a rope to each of their tails, the redfish would drown the striper.
Yeah.
No doubt. The redfish pound for pound fights like crazy. And it's not to downplay a big striper in its fight. They have awesome deep head shakes, and they just fight a little bit different. They're more like a Mack truck, whereas a big redfish is like a runaway train.
Yeah. I say that I haven't caught a 30-pound red, so full disclosure, but
Not yet.
same size striped bass, the same size redfish that I have caught, it wasn't even close, actually. And I have found, I'd be interested in your opinion on this. I found that actually the larger the striped bass get, the less of a quote unquote epic fight you get out of them. They'll pull and they'll hold, but they won't run as much as you get a schoolie on there at 25 inches, and you would think that you just lit its hair on fire. I mean, it's going crazy, it's going all over the place, it's peeling lime, and you get a 30-pound striper and it'll run twice and then it'll be like, all right, fine, I'm just gonna hold here. So you just kind of horse it up to the top.
Yeah. It is. That's how they work, and it happens all the time. I have guys who've caught several striped bass over 50 inches on my boat, and still they get confused, and they they'll catch a 30-inch striper and they're, I got a big one. No, it's just a fired up 30-inch striper, and they fight like crazy. Right away those big, when you start getting over 40, it's kind of a benchmark we use. 40's a really good fish. 50 is just a fish of a lifetime that some people might not ever catch, doing it their entire life. But those little ones fight like crazy. The big redfish, though, they fight. They really fight.
Tear your arm off.
They don't give up.
So, all right. So let's take a kind of a step back. We talked a little bit about the gear, so people know, and we can talk more about lures in a minute. But let's start off. Let's say there's somebody heading out this week. Like for me personally, I'm heading out Wednesday. I think I'm going to hit the Chesapeake in the kayak. What types of places would you suggest that they look for these striped bass at this time of the year? You mentioned off of the shipping channels. Are there any other places that you would be recommending based on what's been happening the past week or so?
Yeah, so anytime in the winter, these fish are coming here to spawn. So until about April, maybe early March if it's warm, or late March if it's warm, they're coming here to spawn. And where are they going to spawn? They're going to spawn in the rivers and up in the tributaries. So great place to start is at the mouths of those rivers where these fish are going to be staging up. And that's where I go. I hit the shipping channels. The shipping channels are their highway up the Chesapeake Bay. They use those to run up, and they veer off as they pass tributaries and start getting less and less. But definitely places where they will congregate, and that's where the bait congregates also. So
right.
We start seeing some big schools of menhaden. We've even seen them on some really small bait this year. Some big fish on really small bait, which is very interesting, but fun.
Yeah, it's funny, during the New Jersey run, we were finding, and again, I didn't get anything over 50. So I'm saying we, but I mean we meaning we fishing in New Jersey. We were seeing a lot of the larger fish not being taken on adult bunker schools, but peanut bunker. And oftentimes those were the ones that were really setting them off. I mean, they were just going ballistic on these schools of these, I'm talking the small peanut bunker, the 2 to 3 inch guys.
Yeah.
And you're seeing 40-pound fish going through there, 50 inches. And, it was nuts. It's not always the biggest fish that are feeding the biggest fish. They're going to eat everything as long as it's in the area.
We've had several good bites this year on just small bait where we see terns working on the water, and normally we would pass that up because that
Right.
those terns are only eating rain minnows or something small. But if we stop and cast on it, we pull some really nice fish, which completely blows away my train of thought, and so now I don't pass anything up.
Right. As we see in the comment here, even on rain bait this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob knows. Bob was, I think he might have been on my boat when we
Oh, really?
bait. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been crazy. So, all right, so you're now at the mouth of a river. Is there anything underwater that you're specifically looking for to hone in on the spots?
Absolutely. I like the ledges. If you find some steep ledges, if you look on a chart anywhere, you're going to see where the ledges are steeper, or if they start to intersect the flow of that current coming in and out. So, you could have parallel ledges going all the way down the bay, but there are ledges that start to protrude out. And if you see that, that's where I check first. I'll look for, there's even out in the middle of the shipping channel in the Chesapeake Bay underwater there, if the water was 30 foot lower, there would be islands,
Right.
And that's the type of stuff I really like to look at. And also, if you see sort of a bowl coming on that ledge, a little cutout, I find there's a lot of great fish there in the wintertime too, just hanging out.
I love it. You're validating everything I keep telling people. Find those ledges. No, it's really not. And the one thing that I try to tell people is if you have that prevailing current going, let's say north to south in an area at any given time, and you have that ledge cutting across, it doesn't have to be perpendicular. If it is, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But you can also tuck back behind those, because as the current kicks off underwater on that underwater point, you have that little eddy behind there, and they're just going to, literally stack in there. And they're going to be shooting up and over the top into the shallows. It's funny. We do the spot dissections in the community, and I just did one talking about this exact same situation. Shipping channel, off of the shipping channel, where you had a little bit of a bow out sitting behind there, and then those underwater islands that you were talking about, they would be islands if it was a little shallower.
Yep.
And check up in there at different times. Now, when you're fishing out there in those areas, are you starting with that search bait that you were talking about, or are you going out, and if you see fish, are you doing something differently? What's the tactic when you first get on the spot that you picked out?
It depends on kind of what the weather's doing. Like say tomorrow, we've had warm weather this week. Tomorrow's going to be just about flat, calm. I'm going to be looking for a home run. I just got in from the boat. I just went out and tied on a bunch of these big 7-inch diesel minnows on GI jigs, and we're going for gold tomorrow. So if I've got really good conditions, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go try and hit a home run. And a lot of my clients, that's what they want. They could catch schoolies all day long, but they just want to go shoot for that 50. I got some guys chasing a 40, some guys chasing a 35-inch fish, but we're going for gold when the conditions are really good. If they're tough and I don't see any bird action, I don't see anything really giving it away, I'm just going to go to those areas. I'm going to go to those cutouts in the channel, those islands underneath the water, and I'm going to start pounding those pretty hard with that Colt sniper and trying to do the potato chip game, trying to get them fired up.
Right. Do you ever use any bait?
Nope.
No bait at all.
Nope. Everything I do is artificial.
Well, I don't do a lot of bait fishing. I do so little that I don't even know the regulations, but I do. It is my understanding or belief that like eels are shut down in at least part of the maybe it's the upper Chesapeake right now.
I think so. And
yeah.
I'm with you. I don't even dabble in it, so I couldn't even tell you what the rules are. I look right over that when when I'm reading the regulations.
It's tough to find out too, because if you look online anywhere, it'll tell you the regulations generally, and then they refer you to the state office, of Marine Fishery Council, whatever it's called in that state. And then you have to send them an email. Well, I've been waiting 4 weeks for New York to get back to me on a simple question that I asked them, just a clarification. And I called and they said I have to email. I was like, it's not going to help.
It's very confusing, especially for somebody coming out of state. You mentioned, as you did the intro, that the regulations are very confusing. There's certain tributaries that are shut down at certain times. The main stem of the bay is open to catch and release, but other areas aren't, and some areas are no target. So even here in Maryland, it's really confusing, and you got to know your stuff.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the Susquehanna Flats, as an example, is shut down down to Turkey Point, I believe it is.
Think so.
At various times. And then you can't use eels for like the next month. And then I don't know. There's so many different things. It really helps the artificial fishermen out because all you have to know is where is it shut down, and which is still a pain, but where is it shut down, and can I keep them or not? And I know you're catch and release primarily, and as well as I am, but
I definitely like to. We keep fish for sure, and clients like to keep fish, but I certainly don't push it. But I like to do catch and release, and like to educate everybody on the state of the fishery and sort of what those, especially on the big fish. I don't like to kill any big fish because they are so valuable when they get that big.
Yeah, I agree. I want to bring this up before it scrolls past and I can't find it. Tell us about your boat that you're bringing the charters out on.
Yeah, so it is a 28-foot Sea Hunter Floridian, and it is what I've been doing this for quite some time, and it is my dream boat. When I saw they built it several years ago, they came out with this boat, and it literally checks all the boxes when for what I need in the Chesapeake Bay. The boat is, I call it a fishing barge. It's 10 foot wide, 28 foot long, and just wide open. So I can fish 6 guys on the boat, no problem. Casting. When I do tournaments, I put 7 or 8 on the boat. Guys that really know what they're doing, and we're slinging lures all day long. Nobody has any problems. So the boat's huge, but it still can draft 18 inches of water, which is
kidding. On a 28 foot, 10 foot wide.
Yeah. And it's a fish ready. It's almost 9,000 pounds. So it's a tank when it comes to rough water, which I need because anybody that knows the Chesapeake knows that it can turn from slick calm to you're really scared in about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So being able to do that and be comfortable and dry, it's a very dry boat. It literally checks all the boxes. It's a fishing machine. Got the trolling motor. I've got a power pull on it. It's got twin Yamaha 300s on it, which hurts my pocket a little bit when it comes to fuel. But if I get a call and it's 30 miles away, we're going.
Yeah, I can't wait to get on there now.
It
sounds like a machine.
It's the ultimate fishing machine. It really is. I couldn't dream of anything better. They did a great job with that boat. It is so versatile. It's a weapon. When people see me in less than 2 feet of water with that big boat, they're like, "Are you stuck?" No, we're fishing.
That's what I would have thought. I would have thought that you were stuck. I mean, you usually don't see boats that can do that.
It's got a jack plate and everything on it, so it's a weapon.
Yeah,
a fishing weapon.
So it's interesting you brought up the fact that the weather can turn in the Chesapeake real quick and go from calm to scary. Mm-hmm. And that's actually why I am so reluctant to go out fishing in the Chesapeake in the winter, because I'm in a kayak and I'm out there solo. And there have been a couple days where the weather didn't turn out the way it was supposed to. So I went out and it was actually calmer. And there was one day I went, it's about a month ago, and the water temperature was 42. I'm going down the river, and I get out to the mouth of the bay, and there's nothing. There's no one, and there's no wind. And I'm like, but it's forecasted to be blowing 15 from the west. So I really want to make this turn, and I chickened out. I was like, I don't have the speed to get back to safety. And it was a good thing I chickened out because I don't think it was dangerous, but it actually did end up getting dicey. I just went back into some other areas. So having the right boat out there is definitely important. There's two areas that make me nervous. It's the Chesapeake, certain areas, and the Raritan Bay, because when that weather turns, it's bad. I mean, it gets bad quick. So,
well, the weatherman, I'm a firm believer. He's always wrong. Always. Yeah. And most of the time he's wrong, and it's more dangerous out there. Very rarely. And we actually I almost canceled a trip. Guys coming up from Wilmington, North Carolina. I almost canceled the trip, and they said, let's go. Weather looked terrible. And we got out that morning, and it was not a breath of wind. I mean,
that's a unicorn day. That just never happens that direction.
Usually it's worse. It's way worse. So,
yeah, you're out there and the 2 to 3 footers turn into 5 to 6. Yeah, those are not the fun days.
That's when we put that Sea Hunter to use.
Yeah, well, that's when you're happy that you're out on a boat like that with that size and that weight to help you drive through those waves. Here's another question from Ben Fraser. Do you ever run those big spoons off the bottom? Which I guess could be 2 questions. Yeah.
These big spoons. I do. Just recently, we started using those. Now,
which spoon was that?
This one is a Ben Parker.
Okay.
The Nichols, these are all 8, 9-inch spoons, and they work. These flutter spoons work.
Isn't it crazy?
I was very skeptical. I have a client and a friend actually who calls himself Spoon Man, and he kept bringing them on the boat. I'm like, those things aren't going to catch fish. What are you doing? And he made me a believer, and I always have one on the boat. And tell guys, use them. And I really think that those also get those fish fired up. When that thing's fluttering underneath the boat, I think they're going to come look and see what's going on.
I agree. One of the crazy things about those, and you said that you just recently started using them. So what's the smallest fish you've caught on that? Because I have seen fish about the size of the spoon caught on those.
Absolutely. Yep. I've seen fish, the size of the spoon, eat that spoon.
Which is crazy because you're not catching them on those small paddle tails or jerk shads or anything, or jerk baits, that are 6 inches. You're not catching those 10 to 12 to 14 inches, but you're catching them on the biggest things that you're dropping down there. It's like they're suicidal or something, just going after those things.
They're like me when I go to dinner. Their eyes are much bigger than their stomach.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right. So you do use the flutter spoons.
Absolutely. Yes. Right, I'm a fan.
Yeah. I haven't used them a lot. I haven't used the flutter spoons a lot, but I have used large spoons in the past. Mm-hmm. Before flutter spoons were a thing. So they were just oversized. They were actually freshwater spoons. And then we were using those for fluke. And then we switched over to the big spoons that we were using for tuna, and we were using those for striped bass. But the difference there is that they were really too heavy. Yeah. So you could still get them on the hooks, but the weight difference was, the flutter spoons are thin. The tuna spoons for trolling are just, they're thick. They're thick. But they definitely work. And it is a little disturbing when you see the size of the fish that will bite those things. It's actually amazing to me. Let's see if we have any other questions in there.
I saw one question on there about trolling, and I don't do any trolling. Everything I do is typically on a drift or using a trolling motor to spot lock. And we're doing vertical jigging or casting. In the winter when we're in deep water, obviously we're jigging down. Vertical works really well. You have more sensitivity that way. But I do find that casting out away from the boat will produce some big fish. Casting out, letting it fall down, and doing a retrieve, you get a different retrieve and a different action out of the lure with the different line angle, obviously.
Right. So you're doing that anytime you're vertical jigging, you're tossing it out first, or
Yeah,
just
I mean, sometimes if they're right under the boat, you can drop it straight down and grab them that way. I like to have a couple guys. It's great on my boat when I have a bunch of guys on the boat. Everybody can be using something different, lure wise, and also their cadence. We could just really have everybody doing something different until we get that thing dialed in, which is the name of my boat, by the way, Dialed In. So I like to use that, and that's our goal, is to get the bite dialed in every day. And
I love that approach. It's what you do in tournaments.
exactly.
But it's what we don't do. I'll go out with a whole bunch of guys. We'll have 10 kayaks going out, and on a regular day, no one's talking. But we head out for a tournament. As soon as we launch, it's like, all right, I'm throwing this and this. You throw that and that, and then and everybody's picking something different. As soon as somebody's hooking up, we're like, all right, first one on this, and then third one on this, and everyone changes. But it's funny.
It's
don't
funny you say that and you compare it to tournaments, because I'm a big tournament guy. I'm very competitive. I love doing tournaments.
We could see the checks
in the background, but just showing off a little bit. But I like to fish, and I say this every day, and this is a promise to all my clients. Every day I'm fishing like it's tournament day, and I've got my best buds on the boat, and we're going out and we're going for a home run, and we're trying to win a check. That's how I do every day. I want everybody doing something different. I want everybody to have the best day they possibly can. And I'm running my boat that way. I don't hold back when it comes to how far we got to go. If we hear something going on, we're going to go.
I love that approach. I mean, and let's be honest, that's what separates the best captains from captains. There are some guys that'll go out there and they had this plan and they're going to do that plan no matter what. So if you have to sit there for 2 hours and not catch anything, that's just the plan for the day. There's some people that'll go 30 yards outside of an inlet, and they'll sit there, and then they'll move a half a mile, and then they'll move a half a mile, and then they'll say there's nothing, and we're going home. Then there's guys that run, and they're like, I was out with a captain this year, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he was telling us about how he lost money on the one trip because the plan wasn't working. So he picked up and they went like 40 miles or something. And he went 40 miles, and this was offshore, got him into the fish though. And they were coming back and it was past due, the charter was done. And then they're like, you know what? We should try this other thing. So they ran another 10 miles the opposite direction past where they were going in the inlet, and they caught fish there too and ran them back in. So he lost money on that, but you know what he got? He got 6 guys that are always coming back, and they're going to be booking 6 more charters and with different people. And they're never going to forget that. I was amazed. He's like, yeah, business managers don't like when you do that, but I couldn't help it because they're just such good guys. I had to get them on the fish.
I've had many days where I've lost money.
Yeah.
Don't tell I hope my wife's not listening, but
well, that's who his business manager was. Yeah. It was his wife.
But no, man, I do whatever it takes. And in an average, when we're doing open water, say, if we're not going out and really grinding on those ledges and we are looking for the home run, it's nothing for me to run 100 miles in one day. We are covering ground. Same with the redfish. It's a needle in a haystack out there. You're looking for a migratory fish that's coming in waves. You got to find that wave and intercept it. So if you're sitting around in one area, it's not going to work. The other thing I do a lot of, and I preach this, it is the most important thing I look at when I'm doing a pre-trip plan, and that is current. Obviously, current is coming in with the tide and going out with the tide. They are working together. Current is more important than tide to me. Tide, obviously, I use it when I'm fishing the shallows because you need a certain amount of water to get into places, and some places just don't work if the tide's low. But current is the Bible for me when I'm looking and planning a trip. And what I try to do is keep my boat in strong current all day long. And in return, we've got active fish all day long, hopefully. But
Right.
it typically does work that way because you start losing current, those fish start to really slow up. I mean, I know we're all fishermen. We've been out fishing and it's fire, and then all of a sudden dries up.
Yeah.
What happened? In the Chesapeake Bay, at least, you lost your current.
Slack tide.
Yep.
I think that was something that Kimbrough said, Sean Kimbrough. He said he wanted to open up a one of those, I think the boats that comes around at slack tide with some beers and everything because nobody's fishing. Nobody's catching anything.
Sean's a great guy. We call him, my buddies and I call him the wizard because he's got it figured out. But yeah, I mean, slack tide doesn't mean it's time to drink beer. Because it might be slack tide here.
It's time to move.
But 5 miles down the bay, that current's ripping, or you can tuck up in a river. Some of these rivers, if you look at how those currents run, it's very complex, and you might lose your current, but just a mile away, you've got a ripping current in a river. And I try to put myself in those places where I can jump around, and keep moving water all day long. Keep that boat in moving water.
That's great. And it does take a local understanding of what these rivers are doing. And I'll tell you what, so I fish the Chesapeake, but I'm not local to them. So I don't have that institutional knowledge that somebody that grew up fishing there has. And I'll tell you what, 2 years trying to figure out the why, I still can't figure out that current pattern. And it doesn't make sense sometimes. I'm on the water. I'm like, wait a second. Why did this stop? It shouldn't have stopped. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me sometimes.
That is a huge advantage. You know, I fish close to 200. I'll be over 200 days a year this year, probably. And being on the water that much, it certainly helps because you can pattern those fish. But anybody can get patterns. If you're just talking, you're using your network, it's pretty easy to find patterns. You can find them on, everybody likes to brag about their fish and show their fish finder pictures. And, look at all the fish under my boat. That's a pattern. They just gave up a pattern, and you could easily pick up on that type of stuff, and you know where to start.
Agreed. Well, and then there's people like you that just tell people, here's what I'm doing here. Here's the type of place I'm looking for. I'm one of those people as well, obviously by my job, but
so I'm big about, it's not where, it's when.
Yes.
So I mean, sure, I have honey holes, but if I go there tomorrow at 7:00, it'd be dead. If I go there tomorrow at 9:00, we'll be flipping them in the boat. Right. So it's all about when, and you got to know those areas and when to hit them, what kind of situation, your outgoing tide, incoming, even daylight, anything, all that stuff, knowing the right time to hit it.
Yeah. So we're coming closer to the hour. So I want to get make sure we get a couple of other questions in here. So right now, nighttime or daytime fishing for striped bass in the Chesapeake, which one's going to outproduce if you could choose between the two?
I like daytime because I think we have great days. We've had days with several hundred fish in the boat this winter. I know that sounds crazy, but it's not. Nighttime is a great time for the big fish. I think those big fish definitely feed well at night, but they're harder to find.
Right.
So when I'm taking clients out, we want to have a good day. We want to have action, and we know how to find them during the day. But if you really wanted to go out and get a giant, and that's all you wanted, fishing the right places at night is probably a good bet.
All right. Sounds good. Here's another question from Andrew Sokol. Do you throw metal lip plugs like Danny's?
I don't. And I've listened to you guys talk about them and talk to a bunch of guys from up north on the coast. And I'm intrigued. I'd love to get into them and try them because I'm big on, I do that with my redfish. I've learned a lot from other regions, from Florida, from the Carolinas, and things that those guys do for redfish. I try it up here and nobody else is doing it up here.
Right.
What do you know? It works. So that's definitely something that's on my radar.
Yeah, it's funny, the regional differences. You hear, I have people, one of the things that's always funny is people in New Jersey, New York will say, well, do you think I can catch striped bass on a popping cork? I saw this when I was down in Florida, and the answer is 100% yes. And if you don't own a popping cork, go get a popping cork, right? I mean, it just works in certain, now don't do it all the time, but it does work in certain conditions. And
These fish are, they don't know where they're at. They don't know that they're in Florida and they can only eat popping corks down there. If it works, it works.
Yeah, but to your point with the Dannies, I don't use the Dannies enough. I actually don't even own one at this point, so I have to do better on that as well.
I need somebody to point me in the right direction. From my understanding, there are some secret lures up there, and a lot of homemade lures that really work well. So
yeah,
if anybody listening knows,
I know some guys. I'll get you in touch with George Bucci. He'll help you out. He'll help you to find the right ones. He's got a lot of knowledge about the best. He even makes some, but he'll probably point you towards other people that he uses, and he is hard into them, and he uses them often.
I'm very intrigued.
All right, next question from Water Rat. Thoughts on jerk shads?
I use them a lot.
There you go.
I use them a lot. My favorite is the Z-Man Streaks XL. I think it has a perfect profile for like a menhaden imitation or a bait fish here in the Chesapeake Bay. And obviously on jig heads with jerk shads, you're gonna use the right size for the conditions, and the conditions are going to be, there's a lot goes into it: depth, current, where the fish are in the column. So if they're deep, you're obviously got to get there. If they're suspended, you don't want to use a really heavy weight because it just won't be a very lifelike action. You're going to lose a lot of action on that jerk shad. So everything's matching. We throw 3/16 ounce jig heads on jerk shads and small diesel minnows in the shallows, and then up to, right now my go-to is 1.5 ounces.
I was going to say, so how small are these? You're throwing 3/16. What depth?
0 to 5 foot when I'm in the shallows.
Okay, I like to use the weighted hooks in that depth.
I do too. I like the weighted hooks also. I'm trying to think of a reason why I use.
Well, I'll tell you why. I use the weighted hooks simply because, well, you probably do, because jig heads are much easier when you have clients all over the place, trying to bait up hooks and everything. I use the weighted hooks simply because the shallower the water, the more likely I'm going to snag, where I typically fish on sod banks and submerged vegetation and that kind of stuff. So I use the weighted hook.
And you can rig weedless that way.
Well, that's what I mean. Exactly. Yeah. So I can kind of bury that tip of the hook right back into the plastic.
No, I think when it comes to shallow water fishing, I'm keeping GI jigs in business because we my hands get really tired from tying on new lures all day long.
Yeah. It's funny.
But if you're not, it's how I run my trips. I'm not going to get mad if you're snagging stuff, because if you're not snagging, you're not fishing it right. You need to be down there in that structure.
So. Absolutely. All right. We have 5 minutes. So I'm going to this is going to be like the quick answer session, so we can get through some of these real quick. Let's start right here. What depths are we talking using Ben Parker's?
I've used them from 20 foot to down to 60 feet. 70.
Yeah, so it's really not so much the depth, it's the size.
Yeah.
That you're talking about based on the depth. This one's a good question. Are you on Instagram?
Yes, I am. It is Griffin's, GRIFFINS _guide_service. Griffin's Guide Service. We're also on Facebook. I am very active on Instagram, so follow along, guys. It's a heck of a ride in the Chesapeake Bay, that's for sure.
All right. And Andrew wants to fish with you, so he's going to show you how to fish a Danny. Andrew is a very knowledgeable fisherman up in New Jersey. So I'll introduce you to him that way.
Come on down. Let's do it.
He has a ton of experience on a ton of different species, and is extremely helpful to people online that need things. So I'm sure that he would love to jump on the boat and show you how to.
I'd also love to go up there because I know there's a heck of a bite up there. So,
well, I'll tell you what, I can help you work that out with another captain. So I had mentioned Scotty. I'm going to tell you right now, I am 99.98% sure Scotty will trade you trips. The bull reds versus the striped bass.
I'm in.
He has said before he is addicted to redfish. And here's the thing, Steve, he's never caught a redfish. He is obsessed.
Well, he's going to be ruined if he comes with me because he's going to get a personal best and it's going to be hard to beat it for the rest of his.
I know. I think that's the best case scenario. So he'll trade trips, I'm sure. He's all over it. I texted him the other day and I said, what do you think about bull reds in the Chesapeake? And he basically said, well, as long as it doesn't conflict with one of my charters, I'm in. No other questions. He's in. So yeah, I got to talk to him.
Big here, man. I being at the upper reach of their migration and their limits, we only get the big ones. I mean, the biggest this year was 53 inches.
That is awesome. When's the best time of year for that? We'll make this the last question.
Best time of year for reds. We get them from mid-July through September. August is almost a guarantee.
It looks like Andrew wants to jump on with it too. So, well, we're going to have you come back, and we'll have to talk about those reds this summer.
I'd love to.
We'll throw up some recent pictures of it. So everybody that tuned in, I want to say thank you for tuning in. I'd go through all the names, but there are just way too many names to be able to go through right now. But so thank you to everybody who watched live, asked questions, or is listening to the replay once it comes out on the podcast. So thank you for that. Captain Steve, thank you for coming on and sharing information. I know we could have talked for hours.
I know, I'm not done. I got more for you.
No, we've got a lot more. I'm up against the wall here. Otherwise, I'd keep going. And, my dog definitely wants to go out. I can hear her scratching at the door.
Well, I love talking fishing. So you guys, you heard my social media. My website is griffinsguideservice.com. Any of those places, you can find a way to reach me. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them if we didn't get to them tonight.
Awesome. And this will be posted when it's up as a podcast on the blog on saltstrong.com. Insider members, just ask a question in the community. Like I said, Captain Griffin is in the community. So, if you have a question or you want to touch base with him, you can also do it through there. So with that, everybody, thanks for tuning in. It is going to be a lot of striped bass coming up because it's going to reopen in just a few weeks in New Jersey and surrounding areas. And I'll tell you what, the bite is still going on all over the place, not just the Chesapeake. It's still going on, and still a lot of bycatch in areas where you're not allowed to target it. I'm not participating in that because I don't want to get caught up in it, but I've seen a lot of bycatch and a lot of holdovers. And for those that are wondering, I'm talking holdovers up in Boston, up near Boston Harbor. I'm talking holdovers all the way down through Connecticut, Rhode Island, into New York, through New Jersey. So it's literally the entire coast. So we're going to be going deep into striped bass. We're going to be talking striped bass from shore coming up soon. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, get out there, get on the water, and get some tight lines.
'Cause fishing